Hello everyone, welcome back to another art time lapse. Today I am doing a mishmash piece based on the wave and also a number of different animes that I really enjoy. So follow along with me on this art time lapse. So as I mentioned, the original piece is inspired by this traditional piece of artwork. It's called The Great Wave of Kanagawa and it's basically a print of Hakusai. This is like a very iconic wood block print by a Japanese artist named Hakusai, and it was created in 1831 back in the Edo period of the Japanese history. Now, I don't claim to know everything about Japanese history. In fact, I know very little about it. But I do know that for this art piece, it was considered really novel for its time, and it was very like avant-garde, very new, very different from regular pieces you would see. Nowadays, when you look at it, it's so representative of Japanese. This like a specific Japanese style of art that's very recognizable. So I just thought it was really interesting how something very new, avant-garde, has now transitioned to something that is the norm. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I think it's like that for a lot of things that happen in life, like how internet, when it first came about, was like really brand new and not everybody was open to it. However, with time, everybody has gotten used to it as being integrated into our normal part of our lives. So that's a little bit of a art history about the Great Wave of Kanagawa that I want to bring to this piece. Its piece is really drawn to me because I just think it is a very inspiring piece, given that it was very new for its time, and also it's like artistically drawing it, I find it very therapeutic, even though like I think if you look at the way I'm drawing it, it looks very complicated and very intricate, but like it's actually very therapeutic. I don't know if it has to do with like some of the repetitiveness or the details or like just drawing nature. So I really did enjoy drawing this piece. Sometimes I do some of these art time lapse, hopefully to give you a glimpse of how the artwork goes from zero to the end result. I find that like a lot of people do appreciate the artwork, but even more I think people are curious about the process of how we get there, and that's why I want to show on this YouTube channel the way I put together my art piece from scratch, in case you are curious yourself, or if you are interested in painting something similar and thinking about like how do artists start off. I must say, like, I've painted this piece one time before with like a totoro theme, like a totoro on a surfboard on the Great Wave, and it was a much larger piece, so this is not my first time painting the piece, but it still is not like a easy piece, but I think having prior experience of it makes it a little bit easier. So for this time I decided to integrate a couple of animes or cartoons, Japanese cartoons that I really enjoy, including Pokemon. So I have some Magikarps that are swimming in there, and then there's also, you'll later see, a Studio Ghibli character named Ponyo. I know that Ponyo has been around for a fair bit now. I think it was originally came out in 2008. So it's not like a brand new anime movie, but I still just love it so much. So here you can see the piece is slowly coming together. Besides Magikarp, you can probably notice there's also Gyarados, which is, I think it's like a dragon Pokemon, which is an evolved form of Magikarp. So you can hear this seeing this water dragon, and then I wanted to do like a mishmash of another anime, and that's why I chose Ponyo, because I do remember this iconic scene where Ponyo's just running on top of the waves. So thought that'd be really fun, how two anime worlds collide. And all this while I am painting just with gouache. You can see for gouache it's very opaque in terms of the color. It dries matte, and because of the opaqueness characteristic of gouache, you can layer gouache on top of a previous layer, which is especially helpful. Let's say if you made a mistake, you can always paint over it, which is one of the characteristics that I really like about gouache. And I love how vibrant the colors are as well. I don't do too much like photo editing for the paintings itself. So to start off, I used the water characteristic of gouache. So I watered down quite a bit of water to stake out where the wave's going to be, where the characters are. And then after the first layer dry, I add on the second layer with less water, and then subsequently with less water until it's like just pure paint on top for some of the outlines. One thing you should know about acrylic gouache if you plan on trying to use it is that the dark colors dry a little bit lighter and the light colors dry a little bit darker. So it's not until it finally dries that you know how the colors will look like. With that said, I think if you like just practice with gouache and play around with it enough, you'll probably get a good sense of how the color will dry. And again, if you don't like how the colors come out, you can always like add another layer of gouache on top and just cover up the previous layer that you don't like. So here I'm just adding outlines for a lot of the characters. Instead of using pure black, I'm using like some cobalt blue, some oranges to create more dimension to the piece. I find that black is just so, well, it's so pitch black. I feel like it doesn't have enough depth, as opposed to if you have like mixing blues and orange and purples together to create these darker shades. Just makes the painting a little bit more interesting. So this piece is done on watercolor paper. I've done it on hot press watercolor paper that doesn't have as much texture. I really like the smoothness of watercolor paper that is hot press. That way there's no like nooks and crannies. Now I'm painting in Ponyo. I'm using a really fine point round brush to help with that. Just being really careful with it. But of course, like I mentioned, if I do make a mistake, I can always go back, cover it, and just paint it again with gouache, and people will never know. So here is the final finished piece. I hope you enjoy this art time lapse inspired by the Great Wave and the world Pokemon, along with Studio Ghibli's Ponyo. It was definitely a lot of fun to paint. And thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time in another art time lapse. Take care and stay safe, everyone. Bye for now.